Good morning, welcome to another edition of Start the Week. Today is the 17th of November. Ranjit, on our plate this week we have Camerons, we have a look back at the G20 meeting in Brisbane. There's also news coming out of Donetsk about the developments on the search for, the investigative work on MH17. Camerons, over the weekend there was one statement from one minister saying that we are going to handle the problem by planting 1 million trees. Do you think planting 1 million trees would do the trick, Ranjit?
I think it's very reactive for what they are doing at the moment, so let's see how it goes. But I think to address the greater issue of corruption and land being awarded to non-deserving people, these are issues that need to be tackled immediately.
One of the issues raised by a newspaper over the weekend was the insanely high level of profits that can be gained from farming in Cameron Highlands. In fact, even more so when it's illegal farming. I think if you look at the newspaper, it said that a hectare could yield just a little over 100,000 tons, but illegally it could quadruple. So the incentive to farm illegally in Cameron Highlands is so huge, coupled by the fact that there have been claims and accusations of connivance by the authorities, which has not been sufficiently addressed. I think until that issue is addressed, people keep saying corruption, official lackadaisical attitude in looking after problems, preventing people from opening up illegally lands for cultivation. Planting 2 million trees would not, even 2 million trees would not solve the problem. We move on. Over the weekend and the week before, all the world's leaders, first they met in China in the middle of the week for the APEC conference, where the center of attraction was, of course, Obama and Russian president, as well as the Chinese president. From then on, they moved to Brisbane for the G20 meeting. And what was the center of attraction was, of course, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who made a spectacle of himself, try as he might not to gain attention, but he did in China, where the world's leaders appeared to be ganging up on him, although it was the APEC conference, which carried on to Brisbane, where they all rounded up on him with the single intention of solving the Ukraine problem, because what is happening now, everyone is describing Ukraine as the spur for the next Cold War. I don't know how many amongst our viewers understand or know what the Cold War was. The Iron Curtain came down. I think last week we celebrated the 100-year, the anniversary of the end of the First World War, and then the 25 years after the Berlin Wall came down. Now it seems with the events in Ukraine, events there, if it's not solved politically, would lead to another Cold War. But all bets are pointing to Russia as being the big bear causing the problems, and all the rest of the world ganging up on them, with China playing the honest broker, because they are sitting nicely in between the East and the West in this conflict. This has become an issue because the search for to find out the real what really happened to MH17 is still going on, because over the weekend the Dutch, with the help of the rebels in Ukraine, controlling the portion of Donetsk where the wreckage of the plane still resides, has worked with the OSCE and the Dutch authorities to help them recover bits of wreckage, which would help towards solving what actually happened to the plane. At the same time, there was over the weekend as well this online news coming about extra evidence pointing to the plane being shot down from an air-to-air missile by what was claimed to be a Ukrainian Air Force plane. So that theory has been debunked, but it didn't stop a lot of people, especially Malaysians, who kept raising the issue that this is a new piece of evidence which pointed to the Ukrainians being responsible for downing the plane. But I myself was cornered by a few friends who were asking for the veracity of this news item. I told them, since it was very late at night, if there's going to be a third world war or whatever, you just go to sleep, because you'll wake up the next morning. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Early yesterday morning also, we move on to sports. A group of 30 young Malaysians, aged between 10 and 12, left for China. These are kids who took part in the Astro KASIH badminton development program, and these are kids who would one day be the next generation of badminton players who would carry the flag for Malaysia. Unfortunately, one of the young kids fell ill at the very moment just after check-in, so the group was left with only 29. What's interesting is that when these kids go to China, they will be spending 10 days at the Lee Yong Bo Badminton Academy. They will be coached by, if there is a name which should interest anybody, it's The Thing. The Thing is actually a very well-known Chinese player in the 60s and 70s. You were not even born yet, but he is of Indonesian extraction, Indonesian Chinese, who learnt his trade in Indonesia, but emigrated back to China and represented China at a time when China was excluded from all the major badminton tournaments. But when he did play on the international arena, he was undefeated from the mid-1960s till 1975. And for that reason, the world's Western sports media called him The Thing. Of course, we move on to the business aspect of our look at this week. I understand you have GDP figures which we should be pouring over.
Last Friday, the Central Bank Governor Tan Sri Zeti announced the GDP figures for the third quarter, and it came in at 5.6%. So for the cumulative nine-month period, we have GDP of about 6.1%, which cumulatively, which is still much higher than 4.6% that we recorded last year. So things are slowing down, as evident from the GDP figure. We had 6.5 and 6.1 for the previous 2 quarters in this year. So to put it in a nutshell, if you look at the global economy at the moment, America is recovering, evidence from the strong unemployment figures which are coming down, and Europe, the growth is stalling in Europe, and China also the growth is slowing. So these are Malaysia's major trading partners. So the export growth of Malaysia for the months to come, given that the global growth is very uneven, is going to be slowed down. But the saving grace here was the domestic consumption is still strong. Malaysians are still spending, and Bank Negara Governor has said that achieving 5.5% to 6% for the whole year of 2014 should not be a problem.
We being an oil exporter, how much is the yo-yoing nature of the oil price at the moment? It's moving southwards all the time.
Yes.
A boon as well as a bane for our economy. On the one hand, people who are resigned to losing the subsidy on the petrol are saying, since the oil prices on the world market is coming down, and the fact that we do import oil for our consumption, that should be reflected in the nature of the subsidies, and there is a clamour for subsidies to be reinstituted so that we pay less for oil. How much is the movement in the price of oil going to affect the GDP figures in the next quarter?
Okay, last week the Brent it went down below 80 US dollars. But given the fact that Petronas contributes about 30% of government revenue, and petrol prices, petrol is one of our country's major revenue, so the contribution to revenue side from Petronas is higher than what we save from subsidies. So the government is still relying on high petrol prices for its revenue. So this argument that oil prices should come down, our tank prices at the fuel pumps should come down does not hold water, because our reliance on the revenue side of the petrol prices is greater.
So I think we'll still have to grin and bear it whenever we drive up to the pump. That's all the time we have for Start the Week this time round. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.